We Make Movies Film Geeks podcast, episode number 103. Welcome to the We Make Movies podcast, making the world a better place, one film at a time. And now, here are your hosts, three aspiring sellouts, Chad, Michelle, and Garrett. Hello and welcome to the We Make Movies Film Geeks podcast. The podcast is all about how to get your movie made, how to get it seen by other people, and how to get it awesome. I'm your host, Garrett Robinson. Garrett Robinson, with me as always, faithful co-host, Chad Kukahiko. Michelle's still traveling, or she's traveling. She's out on the road, and then she got sick. So double whammy for Michelle today. Feel better soon, Michelle.
Feel better. Yeah, she was actually supposed to be out of town, but then the blizzard kept her in town. And then she got sick. So yeah.
It's a triple whammy.
Carrot Top.
Haha. See, but cousins actually, if anything, they would share the last name.
I don't know. I mean, that's not how they do it in Korea, for instance.
Oh well, yeah. There you go.
So,
in case anybody hasn't noticed, I'm in a new, I have rearranged my office. I'm tucked into a little corner now. I like it a lot better, and I got a new extendo arm microphone stand.
Compensating much,
I guess. Making my penis more bendy is what I'm attempting to do here. I guess I don't know. I really like it though.
Who wouldn't want that? I mean,
yeah.
Right.
Well, let's just move swiftly onward. So if you're watching this live, feel free to comment on the YouTube channel afterwards.
Because afterwards, not
during.
Or
if you're watching it live, tweet us at hashtag We Make Movies, and we will respond live. We're doing the show.
Definitely will work.
Yes, that will work, and we will see that. We're doing the show a little bit differently today because I have a kind of a big thing that I want to talk about. So I'm just basically going to take the last half of the show to talk about one thing, and Chad is going to do his regular segments in the first half of the show with my commentary, of course. So Chad, why don't you tell us about Netflix?
Yeah, so there was news last week. Actually, I was going to tell you about it last week, but I got sick last week. There was news last week about Netflix locking in their location software somehow so that you can no longer pretend to be someplace that you are not. If you don't know what I'm talking about, apparently Netflix has different shows available in different countries. So people have been using these spoofing sites to pretend they're in different countries so that they can catch the content from the other country that's not available because of licensing in their country. And apparently there are an enticing number of shows to make people want to do that. Well, now Netflix has figured out a way somehow to shut that spoofing down and to only serve you the content that they have actually contracted in that exact area. The funny thing is, according to a recent Wired article, that this is actually bad news for Netflix, not just for their newly bummed out spoofing viewers. This is apparently particularly brutal in countries like Portugal, Poland, South America, and even to some degree in the UK and Ireland and Canada. It's kind of lip service in a certain sense, because their ability to shut down this spoofing definitely is limited because there's only so much you can do. But they kind of have to do something to show that they're content partners, that they actually are serious about honoring their licenses. But if people in these other countries are really too frustrated to find these inevitable workarounds, they're probably just going to cancel their subscriptions. And that would obviously not be good for Netflix.
Yeah, I think this is I think it's the problem that this stems from is just a kind of a short-sighted thing of why wouldn't you want your show to be shown in Portugal? It doesn't make sense. And do you think
it's because they'd have to pay for it? You know what I'm saying? If they have other vendors out there that they're potentially holding out for, that's the reason, is because Netflix is not paying they're only paying for the license in X number. So that's what it's really about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I just think don't you? Okay, so let's take the view of a potential distributor for a TV series or a movie or whatever. Don't you just kind of want to work out with Netflix hey, here's the internet license, the license to distribute this on the internet. What's your offer? Because
of course that I guarantee you those conversations are happening. They're just, what you're doing is there's a little bit of horse trading where you're like, well, I can't afford that, how about this instead? And they're like, well, you only get these countries then if that's the case. And then you're like, okay, fine, that's the deal. You know what I'm saying? So that's how it works out, because global, and in fact, this is like, this kind of thing has been particularly big with you've heard of we've talked, although it's been a really long time, but we've talked about the hybrid distribution model. This is basically what that is, to some degree. It's, you are the maker, and the hybrid, for anyone who's never heard that term before, it's a Peter Broderick term. Peter Broderick is he's a guy who consults on tons of indie films, and you can check him out at peterbroderick.com, and he coined that term, the hybrid distribution model. John Reese is another guy who utilizes it, though I believe they're sort of contemporaries, but I think Peter's the only one who initially coined that term. I could be wrong, but anyway, you could read John Reese's book, Think Outside the Box Office, and then I haven't read it from cover to cover, so I don't know for sure. But anyway, Peter, so what you do is, back in the day, back in like the heyday of the indie films, you would make a movie, an indie film, and you'd take it to Sundance, and then Miramax and everyone would go crazy for it, and then they'd want to just take it, and they would pay you X amount, and they would have basic, like they would rule that. So they would be your distribution company, and they would have automatic kind of global distribution. Well, what happened is that as the indie film industry was really, really taking a hit in 2008, 2009, 2010. People were still occasionally getting those offers, though by no means as often or as lucrative of offers as they were providing, much earlier. But so what Peter Broderick was doing was, when these people were like just not getting their investors their money back, he was like, well, what if you distribute it yourselves? And this is how you do it. And you basically chop up the means of distribution and the areas. And so that's what filmmakers did, is instead of giving their rights to everybody else, they would basically manage it themselves. And it's a lot more work, but if you found good partners, you could make your money back. And he's helped us, particularly documentaries, make tons and tons of more money than they would have had they just gone with one of these bigger distribution companies. What's interesting too is that in light of all of this, tons of different sort of distribution companies that sort of help in that regard, like Distribber, for instance, have popped up and made it easier. But anyway, it's funny enough, I'm probably going to be talking a little bit about indie film and sort of the, I guess, demise of it in a little bit. But anyway, that was a lot on that particular topic. Yeah, well,
we'll get on to Sundance, because this plays into it a lot.
Well, as people may or may not know, Sundance began yesterday, I believe, right? Saturday. And this is probably the first year in maybe 3 or 4 years during which We Make Movies has not actually sent a How We Make Movies team over there to shoot some How We Make Movies episodes. So that's a little weird that it's for us, but whatever. It makes sense. Sundance is clearly still a major player in the movie world, although the independent field seems to be really evolving. The film festivals don't really seem to be taking much of a hit. I mean, there are so many freaking film festivals, and I went to one down in Santa Monica the other day. It was clearly not well run. It was, they're just everywhere. I saw on Film Freeway, is that the name of the website, a sort of advertisement for a film festival called the New York Los Angeles Film Festival, which was bizarre to me.
The what?
The New York Los Angeles Film Festival. I don't
understand.
I guess they're having a simultaneous film festival in both cities. I don't know. It's very bizarre. Anyway, so I was reading an article the other day about how few movies David Lynch, Steven Soderbergh, and John Waters have been making over the past decade. I mean, John Waters, and David Lynch, I think it's been over 10 years. Yeah, definitely for John Waters, and potentially for David Lynch as well. It just seems like the money behind the American independent filmmakers is just dried up. And that's what they were talking about, is that it's not that they don't want to, it's just they have not been able to get the funding. I mean, these guys are huge. Not for the amount of, they if they could make a film for 2 million, they would have been funded. But none of those guys can really make movies for $2 million, I guess. Right. Soderbergh and Lynch, they seem to be pivoting towards TV, and where a lot of talent seems to be headed. But it's, you know, it's very interesting, and I'm sure sort of sad for a lot of people. My own completely uneducated guess about it is that our tastes are changing, and not necessarily the masses' tastes per se, but that particular part of society that leads the trends and most influences the rest of society over longer periods of time. That part of the tastes of that part of the society have.
What you're saying is we're trendsetters.
Well, I mean, to use Malcolm Gladwell's term from The Tipping Point, that he calls them influencers, and I'm not necessarily including us in it, but I mean, to some degree,
let's face it, you know, I mean, you know,
well, whatever. The point is that, well, by the way, I should probably back up in case people have never heard of The Tipping Point. An influencer is a person. If you've ever heard the term viral marketing, it comes from The Tipping Point. Basically, in The Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell compares the spread of ideas, the spread of fads and fashion, to the spread of diseases. So he studies epidemiology, the study of epidemics, and equates it to spreads of a variety of different ideas. And there are influencers in both epidemiology and in the spread of ideas. And those are sort of, you know, the people, they're not necessarily young and hip, but they could be like refined and cultured, but they're definitely the people that lots of other people look to see what's cool, what's going on next year. You know, they're kind of ahead of everybody. That's who a lot of these influencers are. And it's a fascinating book. I was going to go deeper down that rabbit hole, but I won't. I'll stay on point.
Do you think? Well, yeah, I'll let you finish. But I have a question about like the effect of influencers. Well, here I'll just ask. So,
go
like,
ahead, yeah, you already started to.
I was going to ask a whole thing and basically ask whether you thought this, but I won't. But I just. So do you think that it has something to do with the fact that, like, okay, so a lot of like you could say the general movie going public aren't interested in indie film, and people like us are, and other people are who are like you say, influencers and whatnot. Do you think it also has something to do with distribution, where it's harder to get? It's maybe harder to get indie films into theaters, and it's harder to get attendance to them, because if you're going to go, like, for a lot of people these days, if you're going to go to a movie theater, you want to see a tentpole movie like an Avengers or a Star Wars.
Well, I think that with the, you know, we're in the midst of this TV renaissance, and at the heart of this TV renaissance is so much amazing TV that stretches out over a longer period of time to tell really nuanced, dramatic, amazing stories like Breaking Bad, like The Wire. You know what I mean? These are not shows that film can compete with. I mean, that's it. That's really it. Is that, as far as I'm concerned, is that same? It's not that the sentiment has gone away.
Right.
It's just that people, you just can't compete. You know what I mean? To really get this, you know, Making of a Murderer. I don't know if you've seen that, but people go crazy over this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's not the kind of thing you can fit into a 2-hour, 2.5, 3-hour movie. You're talking about 10, 15 hours worth of content minimally. Right. You know what I mean? And that's how I think that's the reason why, honestly, indie film per se just can't compete. And I think that, you know, influencers, because of that, I mean, that's my theory. It's not like I've read this anywhere, but influencers, because of that, have been kind of drifting towards the TV shows. And because of that, the money's going to. So what does this mean for film festivals? I don't really know. I mean, how did I turn a segment about Sundance into a segment about TV? That is a skill. Yeah. Thank you very much.
And he will teach you how to do it for only $97. New info product. Let's do it.
I could teach you, but I'd have to charge. Anyway, the point is, we are not in the 90s anymore. The heyday of indie film really is over. Maybe not forever. And film as a whole will never die, for sure. At least not until the zombie apocalypse. So, and then even then, who knows? I'm sure
Not until Disney stops making Star Wars movies. So basically, the heat.
Yes, exactly. Well, that's the thing, is that film has become a place for spectacle and wonder. And it's a place where you go to sit in a dark room with a bunch of other people to go, ooh and ah, over this amazing. And I do it all the time. I love it. And I'll still, there will still be these movies like Spotlight and stuff like that. But I mean, as good as it was, I honestly didn't see it in the theaters until I had an opportunity to go to a Q&A with the writer, and the director and the producers. I mean, like, I just didn't. And I still haven't. I'm not proud. I'm not saying this because I'm proud. I'm kind of saying it because I'm a little bit ashamed of it. But I still haven't seen Beast of No Nation. And I've been like dying to see that since I saw the previews. Just time. It's just time is like so precious. You know what I mean? It's just, and it's so crazy that people now binge watch. It's so what's the word? It's so counterintuitive. That's the case, but I feel like there's so much more. It's so much more concentrated. You know what I mean? Even though like you're watching 13 hours, sometimes back to back of a show. By the way, my friend Mike Crass, little shout out to him, or rather the exact opposite of a shout out. He decided to have his bachelor party the same weekend that Daredevil 2 comes out.
Oh, no.
Yes, I know. And this was the funny thing. Like, I was thinking, okay, fuck that guy. I will jump on a train and go to San Diego, and then I will watch it on the train. But apparently Amtrak shuts down Netflix on their freaking Wi-Fi. Sons of bitches.
This is all bad. So, I mean, basically, you just have to be like, sorry, I can't go to your wedding.
Well, it's just a bachelor party, but yeah. It was
bachelor party.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, sorry. So that's it. That's the general gist. And that
Life
was
is hard, man.
Funny. But again, I just want to back up and talk about how that started as a segment about Sundance. That's
amazing. Speaking of which, at the beginning of the segment, when we were wondering if Sundance started yesterday or some other time, so I Googled Sundance. The first thing that comes up when you Google Sundance 2016, Daniel Radcliffe's farting corpse movie prompts walkouts. I didn't read it because I don't want context, and I don't want our listeners to have context either. Context could not make that better.
Farting zombie?
Farting corpse. It doesn't say zombie. You put that word.
Oh,
Don't read too much into this.
That was just wishful thinking, is all that was.
Farting corpse. Daniel Radcliffe's farting corpse. You know what?
That's Harry Potter, right?
Yep. I'm like, there's probably a reason for it. Like, he's got so much goodwill for me that I'm like, yeah, I could see it. Farting corpse. Okay.
Did he direct it? Why is it his movie?
He's in it.
He's in it.
I think maybe he directed it. I don't know.
Swiss Army Man and Paul Dano.
Cool. Yeah.
Friends of Farting Corpse.
Yeah. I like I said, I don't want to give too much context here. I think it's better to move on. Why don't you talk? This is something interesting that I have a recent experience with that I want to share as well.
But partially, I kind of really would love to talk about the farting corpse. I mean,
I think it's like a fresh field of new fallen snow. It's better if you don't sully it.
Don't get it pristine. Leave it pristine. All right, fair enough.
And move on.
Okay, here we go. So now, as you may or may not know, we have sort of, although this may be changed because of the idiosyncrasies of this particular broadcast, but normally what we do is we have like kind of news segments, and then we go into the main section, and our main section is we discuss things that we have been dealing with, lessons that we've learned, that we've been dealing with, that are particular to indie filmmaking, indie content creation. And this week I wanted to talk about contracts. You need to, well, let me back up. Early this week, I was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement for a project that I actually helped to develop. The project, as far as my part, is done. So I'm done with it. I was like, why do you want me to sign an NDA now? I mean, it's already, anyway. And the fact was that it was actually my idea. I mean, I don't think it's a particularly super groundbreaking idea. It seems pretty obvious. I'm not going to get too specific on it because they seem a little bit secretive about it, but whatever. The fact was that I was asked to sign this NDA over something that was my idea in the first place. And that was really, really odd to me. But I read the contract anyway. It wasn't long. It was maybe 3 pages long, maybe 3.5. But it was pretty deep. in the legalese, and it was pretty far reaching. I mean, not only was I turning over any claim of ownership to the idea, which was fine by me, but then also and in many different ways, I could have been held liable to pay damages if I disclose any information regarding this project, which is insanity. So needless to say, I went back and I was like, yeah, I'm not going to sign this. And then I found out later that they weren't even the ones who wanted me to sign it. It was like, I'd been working with them and no longer working with them. Now they're working with somebody else. And it's some other party that actually wanted me to sign this. And I was like, yeah, not gonna. So they provided it. I don't think my friends really looked at it. They just forwarded it right on. And I was like, yeah.
No.
I said, yeah, no. I said if they wanted to draft something that very specifically said that I sign over any claim of ownership to this, which, by the way, for the record, I don't think my idea is in any way copyrightable or patentable. It's not really groundbreaking, but whatever. If they wanted to have me sign something that said I give that away, I'd be happy to do that. And I told them that. But the point is, and why this is important to you, or should be, is you do not have to sign away anything. You really don't. Now, that doesn't mean that contracts are not important. I mean, we live in the United States, a pretty litigious place. So I do actually believe that there are reasons for contracts, and there are things that are good contracts. There are good contracts and bad contracts. And I'm not a lawyer, so I can't. I mean, but my sort of non-lawyer understanding is a contract is good when no one sues anybody afterwards. You know what I mean? That's basically my definition of a good contract. Nobody sues anybody. Everybody seems basically happy. You move on. That's all a contract is good for. So, for instance, the pilot that we shot last year, I pretty much demanded that before we go into production, all of the initial major stockholders, there's 6 of us, executive producers, writers, and the director, all of us, I wanted to make sure that we all signed contracts between ourselves. And I pretty much put my foot down on that. I was like, before we start the production, we all have to sign this. Because I wanted to make sure that we were in agreement regarding any future scenario, regarding, given opportunities. The truth of the matter is if a project dies, the contract is pretty much unnecessary.
Right.
You need contracts when things go well. So anyway, again, I'm no lawyer, so the contracts I drew up weren't perfect, but we luckily had the opportunity to send it over to a lawyer, get their opinion. They only had one question. I addressed the question, ran it by everybody else, the change. Everyone was cool with it, so we moved on. So we recovered. We still are, because it's still kind of playing out. It's still in post-production, for instance, for just about any opportunity that arises. Now, the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion, to a creative project, and I've seen it happen a lot of times, it's really, really sad, is that a project starts to get some heat. And that's when it starts to fall apart, because everybody,
you need attention, interest, that sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. People are like, hey, I want to take this to the next level. Hey, I want to give you money to make the feature, etc. All this stuff. And that's the point at which it falls apart, because everybody, if the initial stockholders, but the writers, etc., the people who are really behind it, if they have not really talked through the various different scenarios, and if they're really kind of like myopic in terms of like what they want to happen, if they only can see one little scenario, but they're not even in agreement on what that scenario is, then things can get really ugly as soon as you start to put details on it. So, like I said, things are scrappy and unsuccessful. No one cares. But as soon as they get success, to even a modicum of success, that's when people start to freak out, and they will either ruin it, shutting down the project entirely, or somebody ends up feeling like they were completely screwed. Sometimes like more than, like 50% of the people. So don't be afraid of contracts, because contracts, and make sure, by the way, that you read any contract that you're asked to sign, and you should be willing to compromise, but not on your integrity.
Yeah.
All the contracts.
Well, sorry, I was just going to tell like my story that happened to me recently, but like basically, if you have a problem with a contract and you bring it up, if the person you're working with is somebody that you should be and want to be working with, they're going to be like, okay, cool, like let's do this, and
let's address it. Well, they
Right.
may have good reasons why.
Sure. And
You know what I mean?
and then you have a back and forth on it, and it's
Yes,
fine.
exactly.
But if they're like, no, like just sign what. So
Yes.
I have been publishing my books all on my own until this year. And now I have a publishing partner who has a company, and we work on my books together now. And like I create the books, he's like there advising me on it, like we're hashing out aspects of the story, and then his company does all the publishing, right? So in order for that to happen, obviously we needed a contract, and the contract that was initially sent to me had a thing on it because it was just sort of a general publishing contract, and it had a thing on film rights, specifically film and television rights. And I was like, and I went back and I said the whole reason I started writing was to develop properties to do film and what. And the thing is that we are partners on the publishing of this thing, but the money and all of that sort of stuff takes place in another company in which I have no legal or financial stake whatsoever. So if it goes over there, I'm completely not worried you're going to do anything about it. But if anything happens to you, if the control of the company goes to somebody else for any reason, my film rights are tied up with somebody I don't even know. So and he was like,
let's take this out.
Yeah, great point. Took it out and boom, it was done. And like, if you have backlash on that, boy, you don't want to sign that fucking contract.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's important that you really, because the thing is that, and even if it's good people that just have very different ideas, like I had an old writing partner who thought that we should have 50-50 across the board. And I was cool with that until the point to actually write the script came about. And I was just writing the script. And in fact, I was barely even getting notes.
Yeah.
And after our first script, I was like, yeah, we need to rethink this, man. I mean, because his belief was that the initial idea was valuable. Yeah, it absolutely is valuable. But just go look at WGA contracts, story by, the story idea. It's a fraction of what the actual screenplay gets. I mean, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like a quarter or something like that. It's much less than the screenplay. And then initial drafts of the screenplay, they go down from the price. The initial screenplay is the big one. But I mean, like that's a big deal, and he's a good guy, but until he starts to pull his weight, and we're done, and he knows that. And it's unfortunate because we had a bunch of other things that we were kind of cooking up, but it was just like, I can't do that just because he doesn't really have any sort of reality on how much work it actually is to do the nuts and bolts of the there's nothing I can do about that. And that's a shame that we don't have to work together anymore, but it was like, it's just not fair, Yeah. So that's the thing. You have to figure out what that is for you. And if you guys, because the fact is this, very, very rarely is everybody on both sides, everybody who signs the contract, going to be 100% happy with everything that goes down. Obviously, the best you can kind of hope for is that everybody thinks they're getting more out of it than the other people. And that's, what we talked about the last couple of weeks ago with these win-win situations. But you're never ever going to be in a situation where everybody is 100% happy. But if you talk it through, if you set these agreements, even if you sort of set up a voting procedure, ahead of time, so that if it comes to the point where, like, we've been given this offer, 7 people don't want to do it, but 3 people really want to do it. You're not, you know what I'm saying? Like that's the thing. And you have to figure that stuff out. And you cannot be afraid of contracts. So.
And God Almighty, don't ever sign a contract without reading it.
Oh, if you do, you deserve what you get. I mean, I'm sorry, but you do.
Yeah. All right. So we're now I'm gonna just sort of, we're gonna talk about some stuff with things and the Oscars. I want to talk about the controversy that is currently churning up the internet about the Academy Awards and race. Now, this is not really something that Chad had any real interest in. I kind of wanted to do the whole show with us talking about this, and Chad was like, I actually don't care that much. Because you're not big on award shows.
It's not that I don't care about the controversy. I just think award shows are a complete waste.
Right. Yeah.
And like, if there's a controversy, I don't care. It could be like people stabbing other people. Like, yeah, I don't want people stabbing other people. But if it happens at award shows, it's like, I don't know.
Dude, somebody stabbed Steven Spielberg. Oh my God, that's terrible. What happened? Yeah, he was at the Oscars. Oh, I actually don't care then. If he was, if he was at the Oscars, I don't.
No, but I mean, like the contract. Yeah. Listen, you see it from my point of view here. If I don't think they matter at all, then why am I going to care that people are all pissed off about how they just make any decisions? I think
right, I get that. And like more and more people every year agree with you and are completely uninterested in any of the award shows.
Yeah,
but the reason that I thought it was important to talk about it, and so why we are going to we'll talk about kind of all aspects of it, is because while what's being brought up centers around the Oscars, it does extend into the whole film industry, right?
Yeah, and that is a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I've given up all my other news slots. I just want to focus on this. So the source of everything is that for the second year in a row, no people of color have been nominated for an acting Oscar, or for writing or directing. Across the boards, they've just
key spots. Those are what people wait to watch.
Right. Exactly. And like you're like, okay, you know, and you look at that and you're sort of like, all right, so but were any people like worth being nominated at all? Well, if you look at the performances, yes, like there are some that are like I would say from what I have seen, and I have actually not seen any of these three movies, but I have seen scenes that people have posted, which I'm like, that's a fucking amazing scene, and enough people are talking about them that I think it's worth mentioning. Idris Elba in Beasts of No Nation is the one everybody's like, why wouldn't he get nominated? It doesn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't he get nominated? A lot of people are talking about Michael B. Jordan in Creed, and that is probably, a good source for a nomination for another reason that I will talk about in a second. And then people are saying Will Smith from Concussion. And that's also like a very like Oscar type of movie because it's talking about a controversial subject that's been ignored by society for a long time. Other people are like, I didn't find Concussion that compelling and his performance and everything. So that's like a little bit iffy, but like a certain number of people are saying that could be a good one. But the thing is that movies are being nominated, but only for the things that white people did in them. The writers of Straight Outta Compton have been nominated for their screenplay, and they're both white. First of all, I don't totally understand how that happened. Like how the writers of Straight Outta Compton were...
I'll describe it to you one day.
Yeah. Yes. One of the guys literally calls himself a skinny white Jewish gay guy from Connecticut. Like that's how he refers to himself in like multiple interviews. And then his writing partner, and just like, okay. And then Sylvester Stallone got nominated for his performance in Creed, a story about a black boxer who he mentors, which was directed by a black director. But the movie's not nominated. The director's not nominated. The black man actor's not nominated. But Stallone is nominated. Okay, so what? That doesn't seem... I mean, okay, so if the screenwriting of Straight Outta Compton is that good, doesn't it deserve like at least maybe a chance at like, and especially now they've expanded the acting categories where it's 10 each, 10 actors and actresses, 10 supporting or 5 supporting actors and actresses or something like that. They've expanded it. And so with all these slots available, none of these performances fit in there anywhere. It just seems like a little bit neat. So people have responded with this idea that the Academy Awards, like maybe those movies, maybe those performances didn't deserve it or whatever. Like it's some kind of fucking meritocracy. Okay, the idea that the Academy Awards is any sort of meritocracy is first of all deeply flawed and like maybe harmful and also like very, very stupid. Like it's an award show. The entire reason Chad hates it is because it's an award show arbitrarily decided on by people for arbitrary reasons.
Well, hold on. Sorry. It's because it's super political and it's bullshit. I mean,
Right.
the reason why Selma didn't get nominated for anything last year was because none of those people lobbied.
Right.
And the people who get nominations, I mean, that in itself makes the whole thing a fucking joke. That's why this is just one of, I mean, I think it's kind of brilliant because this whole thing exposes how much of a fucking joke these award shows are. You know what I'm saying? I mean, because people aren't lobbying for them. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, let me let you finish.
No. Like that's exactly the type of thing I want to talk about, because also, who does the lobbying? It's not the filmmakers, it's the studios.
Yeah.
Studios lobby. So if 95% of the people running Hollywood studios are white dudes, what fucking films are they gonna lobby for? Like, hello, it doesn't make, it's just For
the record, I'm looking at the list and I don't see any with 10. It's only looks like it's 5.
Is it?
Yeah, okay. Best Picture has 8, but all the actors.
That's what it is. That's what I was thinking.
It's 5. Yeah.
Okay. So, so any idea that the Academy Awards are like a pure like meritocracy? Like, first of all, how do you even fucking like skill, filmmaking skill, artistic expression, all that sort of shit? There is no objective way to measure that. The only objective measurement in film, and like this is an objective measurement on a number that can be measured, is box office. That's the only thing that you can definitively measure. And like, you know, things like runtime and whatever, but in terms of audience response and how well a movie does, box office, that's all you got. And some of the nominees did well at the box office. Some did very poorly. Some of the films that got snubbed did poorly at the box office. Some did very well. Creed did fine. You know, Creed did better than some of the other films that did get nominated. And Stallone got nominated. I just want to, I'm going to hash that. I'm going to stress that a few times because, and people like, dude, Stallone's performance, everything I've seen from it, it was fine. It was great. It was, you know, cool. But he's Sylvester Stallone, you know, he's just not necessarily, he plays Rocky really, really well. He's just not necessarily the best actor in Hollywood. I don't think that's a stretch to say that. I don't know. Am I wrong? Like, anyway. So the source of the problem comes from the Academy itself, obviously, and Hollywood more broadly. We have talked about this before endlessly. Half the people in this world are women. Half the people in this country are women. 10% of the people in America are black. 17% are Hispanic. And the makeup of the Academy and Hollywood are very, very tiny fractions of these numbers. About 30% of all speaking roles in films go to women. They are much less than 10%. Women are less than 10% of directors, writers, and producers of Hollywood, you know, films and whatnot. I think black directors is like of Hollywood films is like less. I think it's hovering around like 1%. It's crazy. And you know, the stats for women filmmakers are just terrible and everything like that. So yes, if you've got a whole group of white guys, most of whom are very old, nominating and voting for your awards, yes, they're going to tend to lean towards the stories that represent them, even if those stories are tired and hackneyed and have been done 1,000 times and whatever. That's kind of how human nature works, right? So the problem is, when you try to fix this problem, people go batshit insane, like fucking crazy. So the Academy has pledged, it's done a couple of things. It has pledged to double its percentage of women and minority members by 2020. Okay, cool, awesome. How are they going to do that? The first step is that
double from 0 to 0 times 2. No, the president is actually a black woman.
Yeah, which is cool, great, awesome. You know, I'm just like having a black president of America didn't end racial injustice either. So I'm just saying.
No, but I mean, I think it's actually pretty hilarious that I think Chris Rock is the host too this year. And I just think, to me, it's just, I mean, I'm already pretty skeptical and hateful of award shows, but it's just going to be Chris Rock. He's going to be like the train conductor on the whitest train, you know, all opulent and everything. And he's just going to, you know, and I'm sure, hopefully he will mock the shit out of everybody.
He's already started. He's written two articles. He's written 2 articles that I've seen. He's made a couple of little like really short promo videos, like 10-second
BET Awards.
Yeah.
Anyway, awesome. It's gonna be. I'm not gonna watch it. I will, but the clips. I can't wait to see the occasional clips of his jokes because I'm sure they'll be hilarious.
So the first thing that the Academy is going to do to address this is getting into the Academy in the first place. Basically gets you a 10-year membership. And then if you continue to be active in film, then you get more. You get another 10 years, basically, like 10 years from your last film, your membership extends to. And then if you are active for 30 years, you have a lifetime membership. And nominees and winners automatically get lifetime membership. So this kicks out anyone right now who made movies for like 10 years in the 60s or the 70s. And of course, these people are furious, and I don't care. Like, why do you still get to be on the arbitration like board, basically, of arguably the most influential award show in all of filmmaking if you made a bunch of, you know, B movies back in the 60s and 70s? Like, there's some of these people, just looking into them after like reading articles with commentary from them and everything like that. And it's like, you know, I did my time in the 60s, and it's like, dude, no, like all that means to me, like, you haven't made movies in twice as long as I've been alive. No, not twice as long, but almost twice as long as I've been alive. That means you don't know what modern filmmaking is like. You just, you don't know. Sorry, but you don't. So this is like meeting with some controversy from old white dudes who are pissed off that their Academy membership is being revoked. And my favorite comment from them that I've seen multiple instances of this is these old white people going, why would I even watch all these movies if I don't get to vote on them in the Academy? It's like, oh my God, you don't even like film. You don't like movies. Oh my God. Drives me freaking insane. Why do you think anybody watches them? Why do you think audiences go out and watch them? Because they enjoy filmmaking. They like stories. They like to see well-made films. You don't like that? Sorry, I don't think you get to vote on which movies were the best of the year and whatnot.
The entitlement in comments like that is just,
oh my God,
staggering. I mean, it's just staggering.
Yeah, it's insane. And so, like, this is not a policy that says no old white guys are allowed to be in the Academy or vote for movies. Spielberg will still be in the Academy, and he will still be voting for movies because he makes movies all the time. Of course, he's also a nominee and a winner, so that would apply anyways. But there's tons of guys out there who have just been doing this for a long time, and they're still doing it. And, you know, props to them. They're in there. They're in the trenches. They're doing at the trenches. It's like a little bit of a strong term for it, maybe, but they're there. They're doing the work. Okay, yeah, you can.
I picture them at like Crafty, you know, getting like parfaits.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway, sorry.
Man. Anyway. So this is, to me, this move. Oh, so the Oscars have taken a second step, which is they haven't given a specifically defined policy on this, but they're going to change the admission process for how you get in the Academy in the first place, and they're going to change that to promote and recruit greater diversity in the Academy. So this is, what is this move? What is this thing that the academies are doing? This is a statement of identity for them. They could continue to be the old white guys club. And what they are doing is they are saying, we do not want to be the old white guys club. We want new filmmakers, active filmmakers, and women filmmakers, and filmmakers of color. And if you're still making movies, go for it. And the old white guys who made a few movies back in the 60s and have been riding on that ever since, you know, I'm a member of the Academy. They're like, what the hell? Why aren't I in the club? And that's because the club is saying, listen, we're not that club anymore. We are filmmakers. We make movies. They're copying us. See, that's what they're doing. Like, that's their deal now. And they're saying that's what we're going to represent in what we do, in what we nominate, in what wins, all that sort of thing. And that is a move that speaks to a broad point that I talk about endlessly on this show and on my YouTube channel. It is not reverse discrimination to seek out more diverse filmmakers or writers or authors or actors or anything.
Can we just get rid of that word, that phrase, reverse?
I mean, as long as dumb people keep saying it, I have to keep explaining why it doesn't exist.
It's discrimination against white people. That's all it is. Anyway, sorry.
Exactly. Well, that just like
reverse discrimination would be like, I like you because you're black, or etc.
Yeah, exactly. And the idea that saying reverse discrimination and meaning discrimination against white people, saying that in itself assumes that by default discrimination is a thing that all white people do. Like that white people are the only people who get to discriminate.
Exactly.
Like, this is discrimination. Whoa, that's reverse discrimination.
Or on the other hand,
discriminate.
Or the only ones, or the only people who, not that aren't allowed to, but rather they are the only people who do.
Right.
You know what I mean? On the other.
Yeah. So it is not. It is not reverse discrimination. Again, that term, to seek out diverse filmmakers. The world, this country and this industry are really heavily geared to default to white men. So in fact, you're not being fair when you just go to the first person who comes along, especially if you're a white person from a white family who grew up in a white neighborhood. The first person who comes along is going to be somebody who's connected to you. And just by like the nature of how this country's set up, that's probably going to be like 98% white people. You know, you are promoting greater fairness and equality. You are actively working towards greater fairness and equality when you look for new, exciting, and different perspectives on film and filmmaking and new stories. And when you give voices a chance to speak after they have been not allowed to speak for so long. Like, you are not, it's not, you're not like being, you're not tipping the scales in favor of, you know, discrimination against white people. You're tipping the scales away from discrimination of black people and women in filmmaking and Latinos. Oh my God, Chris Rock wrote this brilliant article on, you know, the racial situation in Hollywood. And he pointed out something which I like hadn't even really thought very much about before. And he's like, dude, like, sounds weird to hear a black guy saying this, but like, we have it really hard in Hollywood. Latinos have it the fucking worst, like so bad. And he listed all these statistics I'd never known before or heard anything. Yeah, it was crazy. So anyway, award shows from a, you know, from like your perspective, Chad, and everything, like they kind of are like, they're a joke, they're a sham, and all this sort of thing, and they continue to make themselves less and less relevant as the years go by. But the thing is that from a big budget Hollywood financial standpoint, they do matter. Like, Oscar-winning films make more money, and Oscar-winning filmmakers get to make more films.
From a money-making standpoint, awards, not just award shows, and not just for music and film. Actually, I was reading an article about this, about books. Yeah. Books that win awards make a lot more money, and it's just from the industry standpoint. I completely get it. Yeah. But my point is that let it be what it is. A money-making venture. You know what I mean? But on the one hand, the reason it makes so much money because it has all this glitz and glamour and people get all huffy about it and stuff like that. But I won't be fooled. You
Right.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm done. When I was a kid, I would drive me crazy. I'd be like, "Are you kidding me?" And then finally, I was just like, "This is stupid. It has nothing to do with merit, really. It has much. There's so much politics behind it, and it's obvious. You know what I mean? And I think that to some degree, that's why it's if you think of on the one hand, and this might be a controversial thing to say, but there's a reason that a lot of like black folks are not lobbying to get these. I don't think they care about it. You know what I mean? And I think they're right because they're seeing the things that matter, and I don't think this is one of them. You know what I mean?
Like,
so
that's the thing is that you've got two camps on all these things, and you've got certain people out there in the black community, the black Hollywood industry, the black film industry, who are like, what the fuck? Like, this is fucked up. Why don't you give us our fair chance? And then you've got others who are like, this is bullshit. Like, we shouldn't care about the Oscars at all.
Well, but it's not so much that. That's not my point of view. Is a little bit different. My point of view is like, yeah, guys, you know what I mean? Like, hello, you know what I mean? That's my point of view.
Right. Yeah. Like, no, but that's your point of view. But then there's other people who are like, it does matter to us. We do care. Give us our fucking shot. And so I do like that the Oscars, that the Academy is doing this, that they are trying to do something
they can't
to change and address.
They have no choice.
Well,
2 years in a row.
The thing is that like this is not
choice.
This is not the first year. This is not the first 2 years in a row that this has happened, and it's not the first 2 years in a row that it's gotten.
Years.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? In a year where kids are getting, black kids are getting killed by cops in the dozens and videos and everything. You know what I'm saying? Like, these 2 years are the 2 years where it absolutely cannot happen. Yeah. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's yes, this has happened in the past, and I'm sure that there were points in time where they couldn't have Jewish people, and you know what I'm saying. I'm sure that the discrimination has been since the Academy began. But my point is that it's 2016, right? You know what I'm saying? And 2015 and 2016, those are the 2 years. You know, that's my point. It's like I'm not surprised by it. Right. And I am. It is disgusting, but it's just proof of how much about the whole process disgusts me. I see how it's important. I see how it is. I just think it's the way that they've not found a way to get the lobbying to stop, or not even like, you know what I mean? But the lobbying is really such a big factor. You know what I mean? Members getting just the most amazing things in the mail and whatnot. And of course, it's going to make you feel special. Of course, it's going to make you feel like, well, these guys really care about me. Of course I'm going to, but you got to cut that out because then it's not fair. There's nothing fair about that. And if you're like, this is on the up and up, so you don't want to give it, and then that's why a lot of these people are going to be pissed off that they're no longer members, because they're not going to get the cool shit anymore.
Right. You know I mean? Exactly. Yeah.
Like that's what they're like. I want the cool shit, And so that to me is an even bigger problem. Do you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And so I'm not saying that that they don't need to fix themselves from the inside. I mean, I've been saying that for years. Of course I believe that. But this is just one sign of bigger problems is my point.
So as a final note on this, I've talked myself out on this, and I think people get it. As a final note on this, do you think the Oscars could ever get to the point again where you would care about them?
Oh, God, I don't see it.
You don't see it?
I don't see them having. It would require it would require a president with the biggest, most amazing balls ever, and for them to actually be successful. It would require
a vagina. Just want to clarify.
Vagina, balls of the vaginal quality, courage. It would require an unbelievable amount of courage and a lot of time, because they're not going to want to stop the lobbying. That is the biggest problem right there. It's just like campaign finance, like that in the real politics. You know what I mean? Right. This is just like, that's what they got to shut down. To make it real and legitimate, it has to have no toys or trinkets or, you know what I mean, or cool things. attached to them, then it really is about the quality. You know what I mean? Or at least a little bit better. There's always going to be this sort of politics where it's like, well, damn, Sean Penn hasn't won an award, and so and he's, I'm not that that's the case now, but
all the people who were saying this year that like Leo's almost certainly going to win, even if like this is not his strongest, the Revenant is not his strongest performance.
Yeah,
but like holy shit, he should have won so many times.
Because that's always been the case. Yeah. I don't think Sean Penn's best work was the one that he was. What was it, Murder in the First or whatever it was called? Right. Dead Man Walking. That was not, in my opinion, anywhere near his best. I felt he was a little bit phoned in on that, but that's what he won the Oscar for, because he deserved it so many times, and they're constantly playing catch up. But at least if you're playing catch up, then I think, occasionally some black folks will slip in. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. Exactly.
But it's not like in the case where it's all about the lobbying, anybody who doesn't lobby is not going to get nominated. And that's ridiculous. Right. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And, that's to me is why they're not getting it, is because they don't care. They're honestly, of course they do, but not enough to lobby for it.
We should, I don't know how we do it. Not like, I'm not saying do it, but we should figure out the right way to do an award show. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying if like maybe we do an episode and we like figure it out, or maybe we just like come up with it at some time. But I would just love to be here's your fucking standard. Here's your standard. That's how you do an award show. You do anything else, fuck you. You're wrong.
I'm down to do that. I just think that I think it'd be pretty fast. In my opinion, it'd be get people, current stakeholders in the actual industry, only people that are current. Maybe if they've reached a level of those people vote on the best stuff and they can't be lobbied. That's it.
Right.
That's simple. That's,
keep them secret so that nobody knows how to. Yeah. I love it. All right, awesome. Well, we will start moving to the end of the show. As always, we ask that whether you are watching us live on YouTube or listening to the audio feed afterwards, apologize for the sounds in the background. I have a gremlin trying to break into my office. Whether you're watching us live or listening to us afterwards,
17 children probably.
Yes. Please go to iTunes and rate the show. Ratings and reviews help grow the audience. They help other people find us, and they help make everything more awesome. This Wednesday is going to be our regular writers workshop. It is happening at 7:30 p.m. at where?
The Melrose Light Space, 7600 Melrose. We're going to go across the street afterwards, which is where all the magic happens, to the Snake Pit. I think that's what it's called, just like Caddy Corner across Melrose. Awesome. Yeah, come on down.
Cool. And finally, We Make Movies is the only filmmaking community in the world, so far as we know, that is supported entirely by its community, and that happens on patreon.com. If you don't know what Patreon is, it's a crowdfunding site, kind of like Kickstarter or Indiegogo, except instead of one big fundraising push, there is a monthly voluntary subscription, which you can use to support artists who you like, who are doing cool stuff for free. And that's us. That's it, what enables us to put on all of our events that anybody can go to and attend and meet people at for free. So go check out the Patreon page at patreon.com/WeMakeMovies. Check out what you can get for becoming a member, sponsor, supporter, etc. There's all kinds of different reward levels with all kinds of really, really awesome, cool stuff you can get. So definitely check it out. And we end, as always, with things to know. Chad.
So Spotlight, I saw it. I loved it. Go see it. It's an important film. It's very much like All the President's Men.
It hurt my eyes. It was too. Oh, the film Spotlight. Got it. Okay, I looked into it directly into the actual Spotlight.
Yeah, no, that's not what I meant.
It was not a good experience.
If you liked All the President's Men back in the 70s, or ever, or at any time, if you like All the President's Men, it is very much. It's a modern, in my opinion, it's a modern All the President's Men. It's amazing. Go see it. Secondly, I've been really getting into this new podcast recently. It's called Sword and Scale. It's a true crime podcast in which the host, Mike Boudet, I don't know. I'm sure he's mentioned his own name once or twice. I just can't remember. He researches and then reports on a variety of different murder cases, sometimes pretty grisly murder cases. There are some extremely messed up episodes, and not all murder. There's some just crime, all kinds of crime cases. So if you don't have a really strong stomach, you could get into some rough episodes. There's one, I think it was like episode 24, it's like half the people who started never finished after the first like 20 seconds. It starts, it's brutal. Anyway, check it out, swordandscale.com, or just search for Sword and Scale on whatever podcast program you already use.
I'll give it a pass, but okay.
Check it out. Check it out. Just probably skip 24.
I'm not big on the true crime, hearing the things and everything like that, but yeah. I have a new book coming out on Tuesday.
Yes.
Yay.
Is it true crime?
It is not true crime. It's got some crimes in it, but it's a fantasy book, so it's not. If you're looking for true crime, you're not gonna. It's not for you. It's not your thing. But it's called The Alchemist's Touch, so check it out. And I also started a new daily podcast called Page a Day. It is actually just a journal. I'm writing one page a day in a journal, and I am then recording it and releasing it as a podcast. It's kind of weird, like people are listening, and I'm like, I'm glad you find this cool, whatever. But the episodes are only about 2 minutes long, so that might be the thing. Is like I can listen to a podcast every day because there's no time commitment. So it's called Page a Day Podcast. Check it out too on your favorite podcast listening device.
Alchemist's Touch, huh?
Alchemist's Touch.
Can you show me on the doll where he touched you?
Oh, it's the part that got turned to stone. Oh, spoiler for the book. Yes. All right. That's it. Oh, so wrong sound file. So that's it for this week's episode of the We Make Movies Film Geeks podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I'm Garrett Robinson. You can find me at garrettbrobinson.com. Chad can be found online at superfreako.com. And we'll see you next week, hopefully with Michelle again. Thanks for listening, everybody. Good night.